Game Boy Works Color Episode 2 is less exciting than advertised, but it does feel like you're trapped in a hex. Tetris earned its renown on the strength of its addictive simplicity. With simple rules and only 7 pieces to juggle, it's a game that anyone can grasp immediately. Nintendo was wise to kick off its second portable console with Tetris again in tow. I'm less certain about the perspicacity of Ubisoft and NEC Interchannel, however. Their debut title for Game Boy Color, also released day and date with the hardware, presents a far less inviting or universal interpretation of puzzle gaming. Hexcite, The Shapes of Victory, released in Japan as Global Hexcite, appears to have been tied to a board game released around the same time as the video game in Japan. From what I can tell, the design of the game originated with a company called Gyu, which may or may not also be called Gajin, and according to Hexcite.com, released a prototype version of the board game in March 1998. The final physical product entered into the world courtesy of Yanoman, a toy company that's dabbled occasionally in the realm of video games. In fact, we've already seen Yanoman's first video game release, Soccer Boy, and their RPG Aretha is up next on the standard Game Boy Works lineup. Yanoman may not have been strangers to the world of video gaming, but they nevertheless chose, or were perhaps chosen, not to take on the task of bringing Hexcite to Game Boy Color. That responsibility fell instead to NEC in Japan and Ubisoft elsewhere, with a studio called Landorf handling the programming duties. If you've never heard of Landorf, well, that's because the developer was only credited on 2 games, Hexcite for Game Boy Color and a manga-based title called Azakuzen Cha-Cha for Super Famicom. According to the company's extremely old website, Landorf was involved in games stretching back to the MSX and Famicom, though that must have been white label work, as they're not credited on any of it and don't list those titles on their website. If Landorf is still in business today, they appear to be working on mobile and computer productivity apps. Their site does claim some creative input into the design of Hexcite in collaboration with Gyu, so it's possible that Hexcite was intended as the company's big breakout, a new puzzle franchise designed to put them in the big leagues, alongside Tetris, Columns, Puzzle Bobble, and Puyo Puyo. If that was the plan, it really didn't work out. Hexcite helped launch the Game Boy Color and showed up on a few other platforms, yet it's vanished into near anonymity. You can buy new, sealed copies of the game for less than its original retail price, which doesn't speak highly of its sell-through rates. And, well, there's a reason for this. Hexcite is not a particularly exciting puzzle game, and it lacks both the intuitive design and pick-up-play immediacy of something like Tetris. As its title suggests, Hexcite involves hexagons. It's essentially a tangram puzzle along the lines of Daedalian Opus, except it's kind of a one-trick pony. It only allows for competitive play either against another person or against the computer. Hexcite lacks any kind of real single-player puzzle component that isn't just the 2-player mode where you work to pitch you against the computer. There's a lot of potential here for interesting solo challenges, such as timed tests to form predetermined shapes, but that would presumably have required some elements not present in the board game, and one assumes would therefore have been out of bounds for this particular digital adaptation of the board game. So you can say that Hexcite is hampered by its connections to an analog property, and I suppose that would be a fair enough complaint, since this was clearly conceived as a parallel digital physical release. But Landorf and Gyu's determination to stick to the letter of the law in bringing the game over fails to take advantage of the potential inherent in the digital release. As for how it works, well, Hexcite plays as a turn-by-turn, 2-player strategy puzzle. The playing field consists of 6 large hexagons laid out around a central hex. Each hex contains 24 alternating triangles, and each player is given 18 pieces of varying size and shape, which must be placed on the board. These pieces range from tiny triangles that fill a single spot within a hex to large trapezoids and parallelograms that can fill as many as 12 blocks at a time. Players are awarded points for placing each piece, and at the end of the game, you're penalized according to how many pieces you were unable to set down. The scoring system is not explained in the game manual, and it seems infuriatingly arbitrary. Sometimes you'll lose a round because the game randomly docks you an extra 20 or 30 points at the end of the game. And even without these mystery penalties, Hexcite has a lot of rules. You want to use up all your pieces if at all possible, but you have to be mindful of where you're setting blocks as they come with harsh restrictions. The first piece to be set on the board has to fit inside the central hex and touch the hex's boundary line. Subsequent pieces have to be placed adjacent to an existing piece and can never be any longer along any side than the pieces it touches. This is a strict limit, especially with the larger blocks. And a big part of the game's strategy comes down to denying your opponent opportunities to set down their larger blocks. At the same time, you have to be mindful of leaving yourself open to their counter moves. Allowing your rival to get into a pattern where they're able to finish filling in one of the 6 hexagon fields is a quick way to lose in a hurry. You're awarded tons of bonus points for filling in all the triangles in one of the hexes. There definitely is strategy required in this game. You always have to think a few moves ahead and learn to visualize the board. See how your actions will play out. Imagine what openings you'll leave for the other player, and predict how likely you are to be able to place your larger, more challenging blocks a few moves down the line. That said, all this required strategy just isn't that interesting. Hexcite is okay, but there's nothing particularly earth-shaking about its design, especially if you're the kind of person who prefers single-player challenges to competitive games. I guess Hexcite probably has a small but devoted fan base, but it's also easy to understand why this game never became the next big thing. Considering the way Game Boy Color's backward compatibility allowed instant access to the entire classic Game Boy library, Hexcite doesn't do enough to stand out from nearly a decade of portable puzzlers also available on the system. Sure, color graphics were nice, but Hexcite works perfectly well in black and white. The game offers a number of color palettes on Game Boy Color, but these are all two-tone affairs that can be replicated perfectly well on Game Boy and Super Game Boy. So, all told, it's a bit of a miss. Luckily, Nintendo's new system had much stronger offerings on day one, as we'll see next episode. Next time on Game Boy Works Color, a stronger offering.